Episode 4, Ayer.
Welcome.
Welcome.
We got this
No
far.
Hopefully, we don't make more 50-minute torturous videos going forward.
The memo is very clear. Keep it short. All right. What are we doing today? Which team are we previewing?
I'm just going to open the Excel sheet. No nonsense. And DC, of course, when you read Rishabh Pant,
Capitals.
you read DC. And man, has he been a player for...
Yep. So yeah, go ahead. What do you got?
I think DC is a Ricky Ponting team. You can see it. And if I had to put one word to the culture of DC, it's Ponting. So I think he's got his young army that he's building with time. And to add to the mix, this time he's got IPL veteran, IPL legend, David Warner, the OG DC opener.
And at a pretty good price too.
Amazing price. If there's some things that DC has done right this time, is bought the likes of Lungi Hengidhi, David Warner, but they've also overpaid for the likes of Khalil and Sakaria. But
Indian Pacers, I mean, you see like every single team that you reviewed till now, well, we only reviewed 3 teams, but they all have the problem in the Indian Pacer department. So yeah, I kind of like see why they've sort of broken the bank a little bit for that Indian Pacer.
True.
I mean, there's just, you need a couple of them in your team and you need someone good. Otherwise, that makes the difference.
I agree. But I just see it a little unidimensional with Faiz, Khalil and Chetan Sakaria coming in.
Yeah.
All being not very comfortable with. Of course, Faiz is a death bowler specialist, but he's lost his wand after that chucking allegation or whatever.
Yeah.
Slower one. So,
yeah,
I think they might have been a little unidimensional or have gotten carried away with 5.2 CR for Khalil is like, okay, I'm not there yet, but sure, he might do otherwise. And I think the fast bowling department this year is in Ajit Agarkar's hands at DC, who's being touted as the next Indian bowling coach. So, hey, this is his testing ground. So, good opportunity for Khalil, Sakaria, as well as Nagarkoti, who I've always had huge expectations from because he's made a buzz in KKR before coming here for a decent 1.1 crore. So not bad. The one steal that they've got is Lalit Yadav at 65 lakhs. He's
65 lakhs.
A killer deal and he's a DC player.
They had him last year.
Yes. So Lalit Yadav, Praveen Dubey, these are people that they've retained at a very low price. Even Ripal Patel, for that matter, he's played a couple of games for DC. He's in the domestic circuits, he's got some crazy numbers. 150 strike rate, middle order batsman. But let's see what he does in the IPL, on the IPL stage. They've also got, and one of the reasons that I put both Seifert and Powell as rookies, because they're relatively untested in the Indian Premier League. Powell, of course, hit a couple of 40 plus or even 150, I think, in the India West Indies series. But there is a weird trend that I sort of found in his short career. He's been dismissed, I think, 7 or 8 times by leg spinners.
Yes, so this quick story on Powell, right? I mean, he's been around with the West Indies for a very long time. I think he's even captained their team for a couple of matches in ODIs, when they had people away on franchisee duty and stuff like that. He's awful against spin. Actually, his career sort of hit a standstill when basically people realized that the guy just cannot face spin at all. So it kind of like was his moment where he just dropped off the radar completely. He then went back, worked on his game quite a lot, especially against spin. he then made his comeback in the T10 league, which happened, I think, 6 months or, which has happened right after the T20 World Cup in the UAE. There was the T10 sort of league.
Yeah.
Made his comeback there, this thing. Then he got a chance in the West Indies versus England series, which just recently concluded, the T21. And there was, out of the blue, they just sent him at number 3, one of the games, or number 4 or number 3. This was not his role. He was always that number 6, number 7.
Right.
But they sort of sent him as a thing. And that team had like Adil Rashid and stuff like that. So pretty decent spin attack. And he hit 100 and then he hit another 50 there.
Okay.
So I think his game against spin has improved a lot in the past few years. But then again, it started from such a low base that I think will still struggle against the quality leg spin/spin of which you will find a lot in the IPL. And I think most West Indies players have shown those weakness against leg spin, be it Pollard or even today, Mario Shepard got bowled around his legs against Chahal. So, they don't face this that often. And there is that. So, yeah, I mean, he's worked on it, but I suspect, let's see how this goes.
Yeah. And I guess all that practice has made him decent against off spin. He's still working on the leg spin bit.
Yes.
So,
by the way, he's incredibly powerful hitter. I mean,
of course,
he's quite a handy guy. And I think if they use him wisely, he can give them some good value for the money that they paid for him. He can play ball some medium pace as well, but yeah, I wouldn't count much on that. Maybe an over or 2 here and there if you need it.
And I think DC, I would say the way they started rebuilding was the opposite of where SRH was, say 5-6 years back. SRH made itself a school for Indian pacers, and they packed their side with Indian pacers and one maybe Adil Rashid or Mohammad Nabi. So they didn't have to rely on overseas pace bowlers. Now DC did that till last year with Indian batsmen. They even had a spare Rahane in the mix.
Yes, right.
So they didn't really need overseas batsmen. And this has been the focus of DC. But, well, of course, the loss of Shreyas Iyer is pretty big in that middle order. So maybe a Mitchell Marsh or, say, Marcus Stoinis was filling that role of finishing or carrying the innings through. Maybe Powell comes in, maybe Mitch Marsh takes that role forward. Or, maybe KS Bharat towards the end of the season starts playing that role. Because
he played some good knocks last season.
Yeah, he did. In fact, I think he played a good 78. He made a 78 against DC.
For RCB,
So he's got a good career, and he could be a handy middle order batsman. So yeah, I mean, auction wise, we pretty much covered everything. One very interesting thing that I found, which I'll probably talk about just before we get into the 11. This is probably one of those rare teams that still has a very solid culture despite not having too many DC retentions. And it doesn't feel like a new team as, say, Punjab or even RCB for that matter. So much like CSK and MI who retain their players, DC, despite not retaining their players, still has a...
they did retain 4 players. So
So, of course, they did retain the 4, but they have a very core DC core.
Yes.
Which also includes the like of a Lalit Yadav or Praveen Dubey or Ripal Patel. So it'll be interesting to see how this culture shapes up.
And I think just like Mumbai, their support staff and everything have sort of remained the same. In Mumbai, it's Jayawardene and Zahir Khan, Sachin. The guys who've been wearing that jersey and sitting on the sidelines are the same for both teams through the season. So I think there's a definite modus operandi that they follow, and it has worked for them. I think they're just sort of continuing on it. I think for the first time, they found a good leader in Pant. I don't think people give Pant as much credit as they should from a captaincy perspective. I think he's a very street smart guy, very game aware. I don't, it would be a sin to compare him to Dhoni, but he's got that game awareness. I'm not saying he's at Dhoni's level, but he's in the right
zone. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think he's very good in that short format where he could make a decision here or there, which everyone else would question, but Pant could carry it off. So I think short format, definitely he could be a potential leader of tomorrow. So yeah, and again, Spider-Man.
Fair enough.
So
All right.
they've
So
just on a side note, they've also included Shane Watson in their support staff this year. So that's a good addition, because I think it would help the likes of Lalit Yadav, Akshar Patel to understand what that finisher role was that Watson carried out in, say, or the opening slot where you play carefree cricket. So even Seifert, for that matter, might benefit of Watson and pick his brain,
yeah,
of Watson's brain.
yeah.
So let's see how that turns out through the season. The first 11,
All right.
given Warner and Marsh are playing on international duty, they're not available due to international duty. I think Seifert will get a few games.
Yeah,
And
he's quite capable. Yeah.
Prithvi Shaw is a killer batsman. I just want to see him make a
Yeah.
consistent run in one of the IPLs. I see that potential. He's already gotten that fear in bowlers. So hopefully that shows up this season. I think Mandeep Singh might get a few games instead of Mitchell Marsh, given Powell might.
By the way, Mitchell Marsh was just the news that came out today was that Mitchell Marsh is injured and is going to miss the ODI series in Pakistan.
Oh, damn.
So he is likely going to miss the IPL. And I think they're a bit short without Mitchell Marsh, because that sort of suddenly changes everything. Who's his replacement? Rohman Powell? I don't think it's the same caliber.
Yeah,
Who do they
no.
have? I mean, they're a bit.
This is something that I should probably
struggle.
add to the potential concerns, because I think Marcus Stoinis was brilliant for
Yes,
DC.
yes.
And he was such an underrated player through their season, because he gave them that important wicket, that important catch, that important knock when required.
Yes.
I don't know why they made him open, by the way, which is quite random, but
I mean, he's open to it, and he doesn't have. I mean, he's up for it, so why not? I mean, he's a bit flexible. He's a good guy. You can move him around. He gives you utility at different stages. Why not?
So Powell, yes,
right. Yeah.
Powell would be interesting now. Powell has more of a role now that you informed me about Mitch Marsh. That could be, but I mean, honestly, I haven't seen Mitch Marsh perform in India.
Yeah, Mitch Marsh is that.
So
I'm trying to find a like-for-like comparison in the Indian cricket, as in this kind of cricketer who's forever been picked on promise.
Manish Pandey.
Yes, Manish Pandey, or I don't know. I mean, I have never seen Mitch Marsh. Mitch Marsh is very highly rated, and he's been highly rated for a very, very long time. But I don't see him. I haven't seen him ever perform. I mean, the T20 World Cup.
Yeah,
he did okay, just but
won them a World Cup. But
yeah, but he's got form issues and he's got fitness issues. I think you would be always, and he's, as we just said, he got injured now, so he's probably not going to play the IPL. Probably I think Delhi without him,
Sorry? Delhi, probably a blessing in disguise for Delhi. If Mandeep Singh or maybe KS Bharat down the line grab that opportunity with Powell filling in, because as of now, the way I look at it, if Lalit Yadav, Powell and Akshar Patel can be the Garibo ka Pollard and Pandya brothers for DC, where all three on a day can get you a 60 of 30 or 40 balls combined, you're good. And then you can scrape through most games, especially with a good start from Warner. If Seifert does well, then maybe, who knows, Seifert comes down the order in number 3
instead of Mitchell Marsh.
Mitchell Marsh. So they've got some room to play around with. But I think
not a lot, but they do have. They have better depth. Yeah, you're missing one player. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned Sarfaraz. I think that for me was the real steal.
True,
because they got him for 20 lakhs.
Yes,
I mean I know with Sarfaraz, I mean, he's always had these sort of discipline issues, and he's a bit of a character. I think, but there's no doubt of his talent. I mean, his Ranji average is almost averaging 75 in first-class cricket. He just came off a couple of back-to-back double centuries. No, but he's been having a killer season for the past 3 seasons, he just went to South Africa and part of the India A team.
Hmm.
When the one they had pre-South African tour, he did quite well there as well. So I think Sarfaraz might be someone who we're sort of overlooking, but I
True.
suspect with Mitchell Marsh going out, Sarfaraz probably has a bigger role to play.
It's weird. I don't know how, or this is something I think I mentioned somewhere, but he's right down the order, where I've mentioned that he's probably got more mental problems than anything else. And someone like Ponting setting him down and saying, listen, but you've got 2-3 games, just go express yourself. And if he's got informed players around him, he might be able to make it work. So interesting point. Yes.
And I think with Pant, he can actually I can see them both getting along quite well in the sense they're both free spirits. And I think, Warner is also a guy who's a bit of a free spirit, Prithvi Shaw. So I think that team atmosphere might suit him better versus, say, Punjab, where he was between KL Rahul and Mayank.
RCB, actually. Where it's
he was in RCB before. Or RCB, I don't think so. He's the kind of guy that will end up eating a biryani at 2 a.m. because he's hungry. And I don't think Kohli sort of,
not stereotyping,
fitness regime. No, I saw, I'm not saying the stereotyping, rather I saw it on one of those blogs or something where he was like, have a butter chicken at 3 a.m. or something because he's hungry. But I don't think that Kohli's discipline sort of culture, I don't think he was fitting. I think he needs to be let free. I don't think you can. He's an extremely talented player and he's a free spirit. You cannot cage him and get him the best out of it. You have to let him go. And he's going to give you returns.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, I think they would take a punt with Sarfaraz Khan. If they have, say, an informed Pant and Lalit Yadav finishing them games, they slot in a Sarfaraz Khan between them and say,
yes,
whatever happens, nothing's going to happen to your place for the next 3-4 games. It give you a knock to remember.
Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to Kuldeep Yadav regaining his confidence here. He was lost in India as well as KKR. So I'm not too sure about that.
He did okay in the first game. Let's see.
He did, yes. I'm hoping. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, I'm saying he is a talented guy, and if he gets back to form, just like Natarajan, so Indian cricket will just be sort of, you get that additional X factor, with these guys if they are back in form.
And even I think Rohit has mentioned him back in the mix of things. He said that Kuldeep is a very important part of the future of Indian cricket. So let's hope that this is a starting point with Ponting actually building the Indian cricket team brick by brick. In terms of concerns, it's interesting. I feel if there is one team that would have come out happy from the auction where they've got most bases covered, it would be DC. And this is a weird mix of not just DC for 2022, but DC for 2025 as well. Because most of their players are young and experienced. That's a very nice mix to have. With Shaw, Pant, Akshar Patel, and say, if they can hone...
Even KS Bharat, Sarfaraz, they're all experienced young guys.
Yeah, exactly. So, and if they're looking to invest in the likes of Ripal Patel, Praveen Dubey, Praveen Dubey, by the way, has an average of 22 in the domestic T20 league.
Yes. So, he played a few games, I think, for them last time.
Twice. I think he's played 3 with an economy of 9, but that's fine. He's a leggy.
Yeah, but first, exactly, he's a leggy. But you can't 2-3 games and you can't really read too much into it. You just got to give them the time to develop.
Exactly. Even Ripal's been made to play a couple of games last season. So I think that's a good thing where Ponting or whoever's in the think tank is making sure that these young players get a flavor of IPL before they are permanent fixtures of the team. So if they can make these players their own, including Yash Dhul. Now,
I'm surprised you didn't mention him. I thought, because I think more than a KS Bharat or Ripal Patel, they will actually play Yash Dhul. He just scored. He scored a couple of centuries in his first 3 Ranji games, I think he
Yeah,
played.
he's averaging
So
116 or something.
he's played only 3 games. I think he scored a century.
Yeah.
He scored 2 centuries in the first game, and I think then he got out for a duck in the second game. And then, if I'm not mistaken, he scored another century in the third game.
Yeah.
I may be wrong with the third game, but yeah.
But still, I mean, he's promising. He
scored a double century in the third game. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, so in the under-19 Cup, he was killer. He didn't have a consistent run, but when he did, his timing was amazing. So this is something that potentially he could play a game here or there, but I don't see him coming in as a permanent first 11 fixture yet.
Yeah.
Maybe next season. Who knows?
Yeah. Although I do believe that their batting is not as strong as we're thinking it to be. They have a lot of strong, potent, talented guys. People, Lalit, KS Bharat, but they're lacking a little bit on that proven batsman sort of that, we talked about that 500 run bank. I mean, you've got Warner, which is good. You've got Pant, you've got Shaw. Okay, fine. But I think their batting is very top heavy. With March being out, I suspect that they're dependent on Ripal, Sarfaraz, KS Bharat, Yash Dhul. So, there could be some sort of, and Lalit, who are all inexperienced relatively. So I think between those 5, there could be some movement, fluctuation. So let's see.
True. And I think this is where I think I've mentioned that Marcus Stoinis is that missing link that they had that formed. And Lalit and Akshar have to double up as finishers.
Yeah.
I think so. This is the other thing that I don't get, and I'm always surprised with Akshar Patel. You always I really don't know how he keeps doing well. How he's retained as the second player in DC, I don't get it. But he manages to come up with results. And
I think
it was 5-wicket hauls in the first 2 test matches of his career.
Even if you ignore the first test matches, it's just he's a pretty accurate bowler. Keeps things tight. He's handy with the bat, and I think that's what sort of worked for him over, say, an Avesh Khan, because once you have Pant and Shaw. I mean, I know people talk about Shaw as being debatable, but I think Shaw is a guy that you can keep. You can give him another 3 years and see if, because the guy just got talent, and if he can come good, you rather have him come good in your team. And the third Indian, I mean, you can't do 4 Indians. So if they had to do a third Indian, I think what gave Akshar the thing is his multi-dimensional approach, good fielder, good bowler, and a good batsman over Avesh, who also had a very good season last year.
And a good character around the team, which is, I believe, getting more and more, becoming more and more important to define the culture of that. So,
another point, sorry, Akshar, I mean, Akshar is the kind of guy who's sort of flown under the radar for such a long time, but he's very highly rated by most of the teams he plays in. Like, even in the T20 World Cup, India decided to go with Akshar, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, why? But, clearly there's something there. I don't think we've seen the best of him. He, for example, played a couple of games. He played 5 games in county cricket. He came to Durham, played county cricket, I think, last year, Northern England. So no spin. I mean, spin doesn't exist over there. I mean, it's not. Durham is like Leeds, right? It's a base thing. It's cloudy. He took 6-7 wicket hauls, and he really did very well. He scored runs. He took wickets, bagged. So I don't think, I think there's something about Akshar that you look at him and think that he's just another guy, but I think he's talented. Going to see, he's got something about him, and he's been under the shadow of Jadeja and others for far too long. Let's see if this is the season he actually comes up and blossoms on his own.
He had a decent match the other day against MI. So
yes, exactly. So
I mean,
and I think he will be more relevant here in this DC team because the middle order is very soft. Last year he had a very strong middle order. Stoinis, and I forgot now, it's Rahane was there, Stoinis was there, Iyer was there. Exactly. Shreyas, Pant, Prithvi Shaw, Shikhar Dhawan, Marcus Stoinis. So he was not required to actually do a lot with the ball, with the bat, and with the ball he also had Notke and Ashwin and Rabada. So there were other wicket takers and other run scorers. So he sort of flew under the radar. But I think this season, given they're not exactly rich in batting or bowling, you need him to pitch in a lot more. And I think that's where we might just see this to be his breakout season.
Fair. And I think that's my whole point, that I think they have definitely seen something that is worth retaining, and not just retaining. He's been retained over Prithvi Shaw and Henrik Nokia. He's the second highest retained player.
Yes.
Only below Shardul Thakur at the moment in the team. So that's something to say.
Yeah.
So Akshar should come good.
Why do you not have Shardul in your first 11? I thought that's... Yeah.
I don't know why I don't have Shardul.
Yeah, you definitely. I think Nagarkoti... I think Shardul definitely plays at 8. Yeah, now... that's... Yeah. Shardul is 8.
Shardul comes in at 8, and that makes a world of difference.
Yeah. I was just looking at this team and I was like, you cannot have a batting that stops at 7. I think Rajasthan is going to have the same problem. We'll come to that when we come to it. But yeah, now it looks much better.
Yeah. No,
so I think you could have, or the other guy, I forgot his name. Kamlesh Nagarkoti. Yeah.
They've played the first game with just 2 overseas, which is DC.
Yeah.
But I think Lungi was in quarantine, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Now I do expect Ngidi to play, and maybe they substitute Khalil out, or I'm not sure, Nagarkoti.
Yeah, I mean they have some room, especially with Mitch Marsh out of the IPL now. Their one guaranteed overseas spot is probably not going to be taken up by that. So there is a bit more flexibility in the back end.
Yeah, and I think the other bit that I feel they've slightly thin on, which Delhi's always been fortunate to have someone like an Amit Mishra come in and come towards the end of the tournament, give you a 3-4 or a 4-4 towards the end of the tournament.
Yeah.
They have Praveen Dubey and Akshar Patel at the moment. So that is maybe a little thin, but I am very hopeful of Praveen Dubey. I think he could be that Rahul Chahar that MI found. So DC
That's
could
sort of find,
And the spin bowlers, Kuldeep is someone who's getting there. And if Kuldeep can get you a great season, then you're done. Like Akshar and Kuldeep would clean up most sides on a good day.
Actually, they're okay. I mean, they've got Akshar and Kuldeep. So if Kuldeep's in form, they've got the 2, and they've got Dubey as a backup. So they're okay. I mean, they're not particularly thin. I know they're missing like a Ashwin Mishra sort of experienced spinner.
Right.
But I don't think there's a lot. I mean, a lot of those guys didn't get gigs in this season. And that's why a lot of experience has sort of been washed away. Like Imran Tahir didn't get a gig.
Yes.
Amit Mishra didn't get a gig. Harbhajan, I think, didn't come into the auction. So a lot of Piyush Chawla didn't get a gig. So a lot of that senior spinners, who were, or even Karn Sharma, or that sort of experience has left the IPL, because I think teams, and rightly so, are looking at it and saying, hey, I don't think Tahir is going to play for another 5 years. So,
no point.
And they all price themselves at 2 crores base price. So, they're also not doing themselves favors. Anyways,
And I think the only thing that I feel, if they come against a CSK or an MI in the playoffs, this is something that's bugged DC time and again, is they don't have enough power play, playoff experience. And during the playoffs, I felt, of course, now they've got David Warner. I felt Mitch Marsh is that person, because Aussies typically do well in knockoffs.
Correct. Yes.
Which is where Stoinis did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So if Mitch Marsh is fit by the playoffs, because I see DC making playoffs, highly likely they'll make the playoffs. 80% chance.
I would say so, yeah.
Then you've only got, say, Rishabh Pant, Shardul, maybe Akshar to a certain degree, and now David Warner, who will guarantee have the mindset of a playoff. The others are nervous starters, and I wouldn't bank on them to play against, say, a mighty CSK or an MI. So, that is because we're nitpicking. This is probably a potential point of concern, and this is again assuming that DC is going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they would have been a much better side with Notke in it. I think, with all respect to Lord Shardul, I think he's a good 3rd or 4th sort of support bowler. when he's got a good set of one or two bowlers, he can be the guy who comes and picks up wickets. Why? Because the opposition looks to target him. Picked up 7 wickets in South Africa. Or, he's always he's been that wicket-taking bowler, but he's bowled in a very strong bowling lineup.
True.
So when you have Deepak Chahar going and ripping the one end open, you try to hit Shardul and then you get out.
Right.
I don't see him yet as a leader of any attack. His bowling is not that threatening. His batting is developing, but I don't think either of them are. So I know Shardul has gone for a lot of money, but he's had the benefit of being in a very strong bowling lineup in CSK.
True.
And the same in India. How will he perform when the surrounding bowling lineup is not? And how will he perform when he is the leader? I think we'll have to see that. I am a little bit suspicious about his leading abilities, but let's see.
And just to your point, I feel Mumbai has this ability to create these fast bowlers who are wicket taking, and with some batting ability, but they they fall off a cliff.
Yeah. And I think if he had Nortje with him, that would have made a big difference. Like if Nortje is back and bowling like he does, if Kuldeep is back in form, Aksar being Aksar doesn't give more than 20 runs in 4 overs, and one of the other 3 seamers does well, then I see Shardul doing very well in that sort of bowling attack. But no, if this year, I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge for them. I would say that's one to watch out for.
I think Ngidi would be a nice partner to have, and he's bowled in CSK.
In CSK, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ngidi used to give them a 3-over spell in the power play, 2-3 over spell if Chahar's not having a good day, and then Lord comes in after the power play with maybe one over or 2. Fair. I think, Iyer, what do you think their chances in the playoffs are?
I think they will qualify, just because I think that among the other, although they do have some issues, like with just 30 seconds as to, I'm not so sure who's going to, with Nortje leaving, I mean, who's going to bowl in the death, who's going to bowl in the power play. Shardul might bowl in the power play, but Shardul is not a death bowler. He gets thrashed in the death. Are you looking at Fizz? Fizz can bowl in the death, yes, but who else? There's a lot of questions. Who's going to bat for them? Who's going to be that all-rounder? Because Marsh could give like 2 to 3 overs. If Marsh is gone and you replace him the batsman, you're left with 5 bowlers. There's no backup. So, there's a lot of tentative problems. But I think they're relatively better off compared to the other teams because they have a very strong Indian core and they have some young, talented players. And I see, if my backup batsman is Sarfaraz Khan or KS Bharat, it gives me much more comfort than, say, I'm looking at Mumbai and looking at Anmolpreet Singh I think they're okay. I mean, so.
Or the fact that Abhishek Sharma is playing your 11.
Or Abhishek Sharma, I mean, listen, let's get to that when we get to. I mean, SRH is a whole different story. I mean, we'll get to it soon. But so there's clear chinks in this armor. I think given that they're just slightly better off than the other teams, I see them qualifying for the playoffs.
True, and I see Delhi being a strong team of 2022 at least, and the next couple of years.
Absolutely, they've got a young core, very talented, and Ponting is there at the top. So I don't see why they won't develop.
Awesome, Iyer. I think that's a good competition.
Perfect.